welcome, welcome. I'm Roberta the Tool Lady. Welcome to Put It All on Red. I'm excited. I'm happy that you're joining me tonight. I'm hoping individuals will join me. I sent out a late invite, but I still appreciate you all. Time just goes so fast, and 2025 has went quick. Here we are in the fourth month in April. Spring is about and it's just going like water. Well, I have a wonderful show for you tonight, of course, and I have a wonderful conversationist here with me. I have Paris too, which she specializes in sensitive children and sensitive individuals. But we have a show for you tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself. The rest of a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Roberta, for having me on your show again. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, thank you for the introductions. My name is Paris Imami, and I began my career as a parenting coach. And as of late, it has evolved into a life coach because I ended up having people come to me and say, hey, I know you're a parenting coach and I'm not a parent, but I'm in a relationship with a highly sensitive person and we're really struggling. Can you help us? And then, so I got into helping couples who are either both highly sensitive or one of the partners are highly sensitive. And then people would come to me and say, hey, we saw that you made this career transition. It seems like you did a really good job and you're really loving this transition. We also want to make this career transition, but we're lost. We don't know where to start. Can you help us? And then so I started helping people who were going through a career transition. And so little by little, my audience just expanded from going from just being parents of highly sensitive children to just all kinds of people who are either highly sensitive themselves or are with someone who is highly sensitive. Mm-hmm. So I asked, as I always do, I asked God for guidance, and I got a resounding yes that I should go ahead and expand my business. And now my business is basically helping anyone who is involved with high sensitivity.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So you've evolved since we spoke last.
Yes. Oh, in so many ways. My podcast has evolved. I wrote a book in a very short period of time because everything just flowed out of me, which I never thought was possible. My book is called Embracing Your Sensitivity. My hope is that it will in June.
Okay. And you said it's embracing, say it again.
Embracing your sensitivity.
Embracing your sensitivity. I find that very interesting. But let's kind of play it just back a little bit more. What is your emotion for tonight? Hey, Kia.
Oh, my emotion is one of gratitude. Just, I have goosebumps as I even say those words because, I think, Roberta, you and I have talked about this a lot, that, God just guides us and brings the right people into our lives. Like you, for example, you came into my life coincidentally, right? But nothing is a coincidence. It was God bringing us together. And we were like magnets, right? We didn't know each other. We had never talked to each other. Yet we were like drawn to each other. Like we came together and we were like, yes, this is a true connection. Yeah. And it's just, I feel grateful for so many things. One is being here again with you, having you in my life, Roberta. I'm so grateful to have someone like you in my life who is also a highly sensitive person, also has a huge, huge heart, and very, very empathetic person. I also love the work that you do with children. It brings so much warmth to my heart and fills me up with so much joy and love. And yeah, so gratitude would be my word.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. And let me see what I think. I am very optimistic, because it is like, and I she inboxed me, and when she did, I was automatically like, hey, okay, what do you need? What are you doing? And then I told her I had that optimistic feeling like, oh, this is an old friend
Yeah.
contacting me, and I did feel like that. I felt that 100%. I was like, well, hey, what else you need? What else is going on? So it's always good to connect with kindred spirits. I'll say it that way.
Absolutely.
It's always
Absolutely.
good to connect, and so I'm optimistic. I feel like this conversation is really going to be helpful, and I know that before coming on, we talked about some things that got a lot of feathers ruffled. You know,
Yes.
which is, of course, the elephant in the room: American politics, right?
Yeah.
It's American politics. And I say that because, I know people say, how can Roberta deviate when she sees, they keep seeing the media, the
Mhm.
country is going, off the cliff, the country is going off the rails, you know, and sometimes, to be honest, I feel that way, but then I remind myself nothing is really new.
Yeah.
Nothing is new, up under the sun. Nothing is new. So
Mhm.
I'm reminded of that, and then I'm reminded of some of the resilience people have, and the
Mhm.
resilience that people have in their spirit that tells me, okay, it's going to be okay, along with God. So it kind of calms me back down.
Yeah.
But we do know that it's some real social and political, I say, unrest going on.
Mhm.
We have some marching, we have tariffs. That's been a big word. You know, so it's been a lot, uh,
Yeah.
and it plays into our conversation tonight. I feel like, because for sensitive people, it's not good to even participate, or continue to say watch the news, listen
Yeah.
to different social media, listen just to different, I say, podcasts, or
Mhm.
anything that is negative that continually. Because the thing is, even if you say it 100 times, nothing is going to change that. You know what I mean? It's not going
Absolutely.
to change. So you got to go into an action phase. What can we do?
Mhm.
What can be done? How can we, where does that resilience come from? We got to look at the resilient part of us. How can we pull within and start doing what is resilient, what God is already wanting us to do? So that comes to the next part. So, for one, tell my audience where you are at.
Oh, yes. I'm in Osaka, Japan. Um, Thanks to my friend Kyo, I was coming here on a healing journey. As you know, I've been suffering from a neurological disorder for the past 4 years. And I am now, thankfully, free of that disorder. And originally, I was coming to Japan. Thank you. I was coming to Japan on a yoga retreat because I discovered early on in my disability that yoga really helps me keep the episodes from, coming on too frequently. They still come on, but they came on, but not as frequently if I practice yoga, especially outside of a normal setting. So I started going to yoga retreats as part of my healing. And so I decided to come to Japan for a yoga retreat, but then I thought, okay, I'm going to do more than just go there for healing. I'm going to get myself healed before I get there so that I can celebrate my healing. And I did it. I'm gonna get emotional. Hopefully not, but I did it. It was a very tough journey. 4 years of going from being completely healthy, fit, physically, emotionally, on every level, to all of a sudden having the rug pulled out from underneath me and going from healthy to disabled, not just unhealthy, not just a little bit sick, but from being super healthy to completely being disabled, where I couldn't move without having excruciating amount of pain. So it took me 4 years, but I did it. I, basically went through a lot of different healers to get to where I'm at. And so Japan did come true for me. Instead of continuing on the healing journey, it became a celebratory retreat for me. And my friend, who is Japanese, I've been friends with her forever and ever. And like Roberta, when I met Kyo, I met her in France when I went there to study. And she and I were in the same class together for learning French at the University of Aix-en-Provence. And the minute we saw each other, we were like drawn to each other. And we stayed friends since, even though she lives in France, I live in the US. We've kept in touch. And when I was coming to Japan, I told her, hey, I'm coming to Japan. Any chance you're going to go visit your family so that I could see you? And she said, no, unfortunately, I just came from there and I'm not going back till June. But here, you go stay at my place. So here I am staying at my friend Kyo's place.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I know, it's really amazing because although I thought it was going to be a celebratory retreat and I had done all my healing, when I was in the yoga retreat, I realized, oh my God, I'm still healing. There was I think once you go through something dramatic like that, when you lose everything that you ever worked for, and then you get to a place where, like a yoga retreat, where you're quiet and you're reflecting and you're in this poses where it causes a lot of emotions to come up, you realize, oh my God, I still am healing. Wow, I thought I was done with that, And that's where, the topic of today comes into play, Roberta, is that I discovered that I was still abandoning myself and I wasn't loving myself fully. Even though I thought I was there, but this yoga retreat and then also, recovering from a 4-year disability, it just made me realize that it's so important in life to not self-abandon and to love yourself. Loving yourself means that it's not just, oh, I'm great, I'm wonderful, I have, high self-confidence. That to me is just a tiny bit of self-love. Yes, you need to have self-confidence in order to love yourself. But loving yourself is going back inside of yourself and going back into your childhood and taking that child, that little Peristu in my case, and saying, I got you, it's okay that you didn't get the kind of love that you deserve from your family. It's okay that they didn't love you the way you should have been loved. It's okay that they didn't care for you the way that you should have been cared for. But now you're an adult and now I've got you. Now you're in my heart. Now you're in my life,
Mhm.
not just my adult self, but also the child in me, right? Because we
Mhm.
all have our inner child. And
Yes.
loving yourself comes from taking that broken child, no matter how broken, every one of us has some
Mhm.
kind of broken child. Even when when I watched I never watched TV, but I love movies, but I don't watch TV. But I decided to watch The Crown on Netflix, which talks about the royal family. And I noticed, oh my God, you can be a prince and
Yeah.
still not have a good child,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, still be broken and still have all the traumas that I went through as a child. And I was watching this show and I'm like, oh my God, this poor man had it all. And it must be even worse, right? So
Mhm.
I realized that you can't really compare, right? You can't compare your life, your trauma, your childhood to somebody else because even in this situation that I'm describing, even a prince can have wealth, can be in a royal family, can be surrounded by everything that he needs, and yet not have the love
Anything.
and
Yeah.
just the care that he needed as a human being to thrive as a human
Yes.
being, right? So if you think that, because a lot of times people will go, oh, you describe your life, you describe your childhood, but yours is nothing compared to mine. I was raped as a child. I was, you know,
Yeah.
burned as a child. I was this as a child. And I'm like, okay, but I get you. And that's your trauma, but my trauma hurts for me.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
comparable to what you went through. I'm sorry that you went through even worse situation than I did. For example, I really honestly believe wholeheartedly that, you know, that the prince suffered more than I did and had
Mhm.
even a more traumatic childhood than I did. Even though, despite the fact that he had it all, right? He had
Mhm.
everything that a child needs, but he still suffered as a result of not being brought up in a loving, caring, nurturing um, environment where his parents were attuned with what his needs were, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And I really like that you said that you can't really you can't put apples and oranges.
Yeah.
And also, what I think, when you hear someone say some things about their trauma, because I don't know if people do it to try to, maybe it's an uncomfortable feeling for them. So they'll
Mhm.
say, well, I had this happen, or this is what happened to me. And rather just listen to that individuals and say, you know what, I get it. I understand where you're coming from,
Mhm.
because you really can't compare them. And
Yeah.
then, when you talk about the inner child and inner child traumas, you're also talking about individuals still being stuck there at that age. And I don't think my audience realize that, but some of us in certain areas
Mhm.
are still stuck in some of that
Yeah.
trauma. So if it's an
Yeah.
8-year-old, a 15-year-old, 12-year
Mhm.
old, we're still stuck right there in that trauma. So when we connect with that, it
Mhm.
lets us know, A, what happened, what
Yeah.
happened, and identify and then deal with it. So I'm glad that you have worked with dealing with those things, because sometimes they could be so painful that people do other things, like they might shop, they may
Mhm.
want to change their appearance, they
Mhm.
may overcompensate in other areas because of that trauma.
Absolutely.
And,
Mhm.
alcohol, drug use because of
Yeah.
trauma. So they
Yes.
good that that you found the place to go back and be patient with that child, with that person that you are,
Absolutely.
right? Because that's who you are, you know. So be patient with that person. I really like that. Um, the other part of it that I was listening to, you said you were sick. Was it from some of those things happening, or
No, it was so it was due to multiple traumas happening at one after the other. It's a very rare neurological disorder. It's called a conversion disorder, and it came about from my upstairs neighbor's bathroom remodel went wrong and caused a lot of sewage leaks in my home. And it was one leak after the other, in a total of 9 leaks. That came, and they each leak came after I completely fixed my home. And as you know, for a highly sensitive person, our home is our haven, right? It's
yeah,
the place that we go to kind of recover from the day's stress
yeah,
and events,
yeah,
even if they were not stressful. For a highly sensitive person, you really need to have a place to go to that you can say, okay, this is my place where everything is the way I like it. It's peaceful, it's zen, it brings me brings me nourishment, you know, it gets me going, it makes me build my resilience on a daily basis, because as a highly sensitive person, our nervous system is very finely tuned.
yeah.
So we need to be very cognizant of the environment that we create for ourselves at home.
Mm.
And so in my situation, you know, it wasn't just water leak, right? It was a sewage leak. And you know, that by itself is disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Now let's have that happen in your kitchen,
Oh wow.
you know, and you're like, oh my God, of all the places that you could have
Right.
a sewage leak,
Right.
why in the place where I'm
Oh
eating?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so disgusting. And so this happened over and over again. And it wasn't just the fact that it was a leak, you know, it wasn't, it's, you know, it seems so simple, but it was a lot of trauma involved because my home was constantly in chaos, you know, constantly. For over 3 years, my home was being um, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt. The neighbors that caused the leak lied to me. They said it was clean water when it was black water. They said it was not sewage when it actually was
Oh
sewage.
wow.
They said you know, they would pay for the repairs, and they started paying for the first leak, and then they realized, oh, this is expensive, so they stopped paying. So then,
Mm.
you know, it was like having to deplete my savings to rebuild my home over and over and over again. And at my age, you know, you build your savings because you're like, oh, soon I'll be in the retirement age. And so I
Yeah.
need my savings, you know, I need to make it grow for me. So this is the growth, right? You don't want to
Right.
deplete your savings, you want to grow it, and you know,
Right.
make sure that you
Yeah.
set yourself up for success when retirement comes around. I mean, not that I'm at retirement age now, but this is the age where I'm not in my 20s or 30s, right? So I'm building for retirement
Yeah.
now.
You want to give it all you got.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so then
I
exactly,
understand. You want to give it all you got right now. I get that.
yeah.
Yes.
So it
Definitely.
wasn't. It's not as simple as, oh, leaks caused me to get this, you know, this conversion disorder. No, it was a lot of things that happened. And luckily, because I'm a highly sensitive person, I'm also extremely resilient, because we are, as highly sensitive people, we are
Mhm.
very resilient, and we are also very resourceful. So despite that, because the leak kept happening over and over and over again, and it happened
Mhm.
a few months after the repairs would happen. So you can imagine that I would build my home and it would be beautiful again, and then boom, another leak,
Oh
and
my
the
goodness.
whole thing would have to get redone again.
I
Walls,
couldn't imagine the
everything.
smell of a sewage in my home. You know how you could go outside sometimes
Yeah.
and smell the sewage? I couldn't imagine smelling that all day inside of a house.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would really
I
be
mean,
awful.
and then the thing is, like, you don't want to leave your home, because a lot of people said leave. And I'm like, first of all, I have a dog. Where do I go? You know,
Mhm.
not many places will allow me to have my dog. She's my life. There's no way. People told me, "Oh, go put your dog in a kennel." I'm like,
Mhm.
are you kidding me? Do you have an animal? Do you
Yeah,
know what it's like? Like
that was
it's
insensitive, wasn't it?
yeah, it's like me telling someone who has a child, like
Get
the
rid of your child, just sit them on down and sit them on down the street and keep going.
yeah, it's like, oh
Yeah,
my God.
that's insensitive.
So it was just a lot of things coming at me from very different angles.
Yeah.
And on top of it, I had just started a new job at a company that I absolutely adored. That was my dream company to work for forever and ever and ever. I never thought I would work there, and I did it. I got the job and I loved my job.
Mhm.
And all of this was all happening. So as a result of numerous traumas happening, I got this very rare neurological disorder. It's so rare that people didn't know what to do with me. Doctors didn't know. My own doctor that I had seen for over 25 years didn't know I had conversion disorder. She just thought that it was stress and that I got depression and I got anxiety. And yes, I had gotten depression and I had gotten anxiety, but it wasn't that wasn't it, right? It wasn't that I'm a depressed person and I'm anxious because I'm like wondering, like, when is the next leak going to come? Is it going to come crashing on my head? Or is it, while I'm cooking, is the ceiling going to come
Yeah,
on my
yeah,
head?
that would be
Um,
horrible.
yeah. So that's how I got the conversion disorder. And since no one knew how to help me with it, no doctor knew even that I had it to begin with. It took over a year before
Mhm.
someone figured out what I had. And that was oh my God, I love her so much. That was my psychologist that I started seeing
Mhm.
when my doctor said that I have depression and anxiety. First, I had hired a life coach because I didn't know I had anxiety and
Mhm.
depression. So I thought maybe this life coach can help me and maneuver this stuff. And then when that didn't work, and I was told that I have depression and anxiety and I should go on medication, and I hate medication. So I'm like, no, I'm not taking medication. But the doctor forced me, basically, not forced me, like she didn't put a gun into my head, but basically said, you don't have a choice. Take this. And
Mhm.
since I trusted her, is my doctor for over 25 years. I said, okay, fine, I'll take the medication, but this is not where it's going to stop because I'm not going to put a band-aid on it, right? I need to
Yeah.
figure out what's the source of this disease.
Yes.
Um, and the disease was very painful, by the way. It was something where um, you see in the movies, when somebody's getting tortured with electrocution, for example, so that they can reveal whatever truth that person wants them to reveal.
Mhm.
This is basically what my situation was my body would go out, like I wouldn't be able to move, and then if I tried to move, it would be like somebody was electrocuting me on my lower back,
Wow.
and to a level of torture, like
Mhm.
serious torture, where the pain was so excruciating that I would actually basically just scream from the pain. And I'm very good at tolerating pain. I don't usually, like, if I have a headache, migraine, whatever, very rare that I have it. But if I do have it, I just, I just go take a nap or go be in a quiet room,
Mhm.
and, my headache will go away. But I don't believe
Yes.
in medication. So I don't do anything like that. But I had no choice. So I did it. And the level of pain was extremely high. And doctors couldn't help me. My
Mhm.
psychologist was amazing. She discovered it. And then, then I had to see a psychiatrist in order to get the right medication. And then that's when my healing journey really began, was with the psychologist and the psychiatrist. But it didn't end there because they didn't know
Okay.
how to get rid of it without medication and talk therapy. And I needed more than just talk therapy. As much as I love my therapist and I love the talk therapy, but to me I wasn't being healed. I was just having someone put a band-aid on each and every episode, which sometimes they lasted for a whole month. So sometimes
Mm.
I would be bedridden for a whole month.
Wow.
And so I really had to, this is again where self-love comes into play, is that you don't give up on yourself, right? You don't
Right.
go, oh, I'm disabled now. First of all, I didn't even realize I was disabled, even though she told me you're now disabled. It didn't register in my head.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm not disabled. I'm going to fight this thing. I'm going to do as
Wow.
much as I can to be resilient and to be strong and to gain my life back, because I lost my life in
Mm.
every way that you could imagine. I lost everything that
Mhm.
I had. And so I started just seeking help from every place that I could figure out, like energy
Mhm.
healers. I never worked with an energy healer before. I did that. I did many different types of healing until I finally got healed. It was like almost 4 years before I got healed. And going back to the yoga retreat, when I was in a pose that basically brought up a lot of emotion, I realized that I had been abandoning myself all my life. And it wasn't the first time I realized it. Of course, I realized it many, many years ago, and that's when my journey on healing myself came into play. But I realized that I was continuing the self abandonment because I was allowing my family to abandon me and be okay with it, and not only be okay with it, but then on top of it abandon my own self so that I could be there for them, and so that
Mhm.
I could provide for them, so that I could be their parents, because I had the reverse role with my parents where I was always the caregiver to them instead
Mhm.
of them being my parents. I was always parenting them. And then I realized that part of my journey of not healing from this disorder, but just healing from my childhood trauma had to continue and had to kind of end with that yoga retreat where I would discover, okay, you still are not fully loving yourself. And you
Mhm.
need to figure out what that means for you, because for each person, that has a different meaning, right? For
Mhm.
what I say, when I say I need to fully love myself, it means that I cannot abandon myself.
Mhm.
Meaning that if my parents come to me and say, hey, um, we're going to sell our house because we don't have, this is just a hypothetical, it's not a real situation, but let's say they
Mhm.
come to me and say, hey, we're going to sell our home because we don't have that money to live anymore. Um, the old me would be like, oh, no, 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 don't sell your house. Let me sell my house and I'll give you my money because you're in your 80s now. I'm still young. I still can make that money, whereas you can't go out and work and
Wow.
you can't
Mhm.
do that. So let me support you. So it's okay to do that if it doesn't harm myself. But if I don't have the means to cover my own expenses and I give up my own life to satisfy their life, then that's self abandonment. And I
Yeah.
tend to do that a lot. I did that even with my neighbors, right? In the beginning, when they put all the burden on me to figure out how to resolve the situation with the leaks, instead of saying it's the source is coming from my house, let me figure it out, the guy just went on vacation. When the leaks came through, like he
Yeah.
didn't only going to Palm Springs. It's not like he was going out of the country and he couldn't cancel his plans. He could have easily canceled his plans, right? It was
Yeah.
July weekend and he's just like, oh, I'm going on my vacation, you deal with it. And
Wow.
I
Yeah.
dealt with it because I'm like, oh, he's going on vacation, I'm staying here, I can figure things out.
Yeah.
But that's self-abandonment, right? Because you're taking on the burden that is not yours, and
Mhm.
that you are making your life suffer, um, so that somebody else can have a happy life. It's not
Right.
my responsibility to take care of the guy's leak. You
Mm.
know, it's his
Yeah.
home. He needs to figure it out. Yet I took it on, right? Because that's
Yeah.
all I know how to do in life is take on
Now,
different responsibilities.
Paris, too, if you don't mind, how did the relationship with your parents cross back over into you being the parent and them being and I'm just asking because sometimes the audience don't realize that sometimes either the parents aren't dealing with their inner self, or it could be, some substance abuse, it could be some mental health situations that makes that relationship reverse, meaning you have to look out for them versus them looking out for you. And it's a lot of children, a lot of families that have are like that, the where the
Mhm.
parents, the child actually had to look out for the child. And I mean the parents, even
Yeah,
when the child was small, I've had clients who are 8 and 9, and they'll be like, I'm concerned, my mama's in danger, or she's at this hotel and I'm worried, and I'm like, you're just 8 or 9 and that's what you're worried about.
I
Or
know.
4 and 5, I'm concerned that my mom needs a place to stay. Well, you're
Yeah,
just 4 or 5. That's a whole lot for a
yeah.
child to be worried about. So I just want you to tell us how did that switch over like that?
It happened when I was a child. As far back as I can remember, my mom would put the burden of her relationship on me. She had a very um, I don't know what the word is not coming to me right now, but she had a turbulent. She had a very turbulent relationship with my dad. My dad is a narcissist. He's a very scary person when he wants to be. He's also a very loving person when he wants to be. So he
Mhm.
has two sides to him, and the two sides are opposing each other. Like there's no middle ground for my dad. He's either really amazing, loving you, nurturing you, being a great person, to like going to the other extreme where he is very scary.
Yeah.
He just all I can say that to me as a child, he was a monster. I love my dad. Don't get me wrong. I love him
Yeah.
dearly. I do everything I can in my life, in my power, to make his life easier and to help him. I have done it all my life. Um, I don't say it to be mean. I don't say it to be disrespectful. I say it because it's the honest truth. That's how I felt.
Mhm.
I felt like he was the monster, and I ran away from him as much as I could. So I had very small amount of interaction with my dad when I was little. But so it started with my mom, um, like always getting into these altercations with my dad, and then putting me in the middle of bringing them together and
Mhm.
solving the situation so that they could go back together again. So they would have these fights, they would fight, they would, my mom would go do her thing, my dad would go do his thing, and then they're like, oh my god, we're going to get a divorce. And in my culture, divorce, those back then, was not even a word
Yeah.
that people use. So for me to hear that was like, oh my god, this is so crazy. My dad is going to leave my mom. What are we going to do? We're going to have a broken family. In my culture, when I was little, that was not a norm.
Yeah.
Divorces were not norms. People, couples stayed together forever and ever and ever, even if it was abusive, even if it was dysfunctional. In my parents' case, it was not abusive, but it was very dysfunctional. It was abusive verbally, but not physically.
Yeah.
On my parents, with my parents. My dad was physically abusive to me, not just emotionally abusive.
Mhm.
But I stayed away from him. So that only happened once, maybe twice at the most. Um, but so they put me in the middle all the time to bring them together. And
Okay.
then that was my very early childhood. That was when I was not even going to school. So it was, I don't know, maybe at the age of 6 that I got brought into these discussions where,
Relationship, yeah,
you
and to their relationship. And
yeah,
there's again, there's families like that. There's families where adults involve the children in adult, what we consider in our culture adult conversations. But it's
yes,
getting more and more prevalent. that the children, there is no boundary there.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. The boundaries had shifted then. So that's what put you right there at an equal with your mom and your dad, because
Yes.
they were getting you involved in their problem solving and in their relationship. Now, someone wants to know, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older brother and a younger one. At the time, my younger brother is 11 years younger than me. So at the time where I needed to step up and be an adult and parent my parents, he was not born. The younger brother was not born yet. But my older brother, now I've discovered, is also a narcissist, just like my dad. So my older brother was all about taking care of himself. He did get involved a little bit, but they didn't put that burden on him as much as they did on me. Now, some people tell me, "Oh, it's your culture. In your culture, men are regarded as better than women."
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the truth. I don't know. I really traveled so much when I was little. I didn't get to be my culture so much. So I don't know. Maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe it's not. But at least I know in my family,
Mm-hmm.
my brother was the one who got everything that he wanted. And he was the one that was put on a pedestal. And I was basically told to just exist. And that's pretty much my role in the family was, talk when we ask you to talk, engage when we ask you to engage, and everything else just didn't happen. Like, I didn't have parents that were attuned to my needs. Even according to my grandma, even from the moment that I was born, my parents were not attuned to me. So my dad would basically force my mom to let me cry. Even if it meant all day long, all night long, they would just put me in my bassinet and they would close the door and they would leave. And I would be in my room crying without anyone attending to me. And my grandma was there, and I love my grandma so much. She's no longer with us, but she decided in that moment that when when I was old enough where I could get away from my parents, she would go and take me and take good care of me and help me be resilient so that I could live in this very dysfunctional family.
Right.
But my parents basically abandoned me from the moment I was born, according to my grandma. Not physically abandoned me, but emotionally abandoned me.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma said that my mom didn't have any power over my dad, so she couldn't go and pick me up when I was crying. So here, I can't even imagine. Like, I have a dog. I don't have any children of my own. I've raised a lot of children, but I don't have a child of my own. But if that happened to my dog, where she, cried, and somebody else would not allow me to go and soothe
Yeah.
her, it would just break my heart. And I don't know if I could recover from that. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how my mom did it, because she's an amazing person. She's also a highly sensitive person, very, very kind person, has a heart of gold. I mean, this woman is,
Mm-hmm.
talk about an empath. She's an empath on a next level. So
Oh,
I just can't even imagine what that must have been like.
yeah.
Um, but that's it. It started there. The reverse role started as a child, as a young child, and it never stopped. So
Yeah.
after that, it just changed, in a different way. For example, my dad was diagnosed with a brain tumor at first, and then it turned out to be an inner ear tumor, and it was the size of a grapefruit. So he had to leave Iran to come to the States to get it taken care of. And as a result, we lost a lot of our savings, because my dad didn't have insurance. When he came to the States, he had to pay for medical expenses out of
Yeah.
pocket. And it was a lot of money, let's just say.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you can imagine, taking a tumor the size of a
Mm-hmm.
grapefruit out of your body. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be very expensive, and it was
Yeah.
a very long recovery process for my dad. So when my dad lost a lot of money, then I was 11, and at that time I thought, oh, I'm sorry, no, I was 12, and at that time I thought, okay, well, how can I help my family?
Mm-hmm.
So I started working, and I started doing babysitting work because that's what my older cousin was doing, and she was making really good money from it. So I thought, oh, I can babysit and I can
Yeah.
contribute financially to the family. So
Yeah.
then it became financial, being financially responsible for, you know, for at a very young age, right? I don't, maybe it was 11, 12. I don't really remember the exact age, but it was definitely not older than 12 when I started working. And I continued to work from the age of 12 onwards. I continued to work full time after school so that I could help my parents financially, at least take care of my own needs. I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
they put a roof over my head. They, gave me food, all of that. But my clothing, my school expenses, anything related to me personally, I took care of myself. And then, their whole thing of my dad being sick, my mom having to be the breadwinner,
Mm-hmm.
I had to kind of take care of both my parents, from a health wise, like make sure my mom is okay, make sure my dad is, getting the help that he needs. So it just continued. I don't think it ever stopped. I don't think it will stop. I'm still going to be their parents because at the age of 85, my dad is 85, my mom is soon to be 80. There's no way I can pull back now and say, oh, I've
Oh,
been your parent all my life, and now I'm just going to,
yeah. Well, because I mean, now actually, because of the age time, it would be a time for you to step in and take that role. So
yeah,
you never got a break. Now,
yeah,
what I want to ask you is the correlation, because this is what I was thinking. Because you're talking about abandoning yourself, leaving yourself, and and then it sounds like no boundaries. Because if I hear you say, well, I'll give up my stuff for them. So it sounds like you did without any boundaries. Now, the first question I had, did you transcend that all, well, you did say with your neighbor. So you did take that with your neighbor as well. Was that in your workplace too?
yeah. Oh, yes, yes, and yes. I just, um, I think I started my journey of stopping the self abandonment in all aspects of myself. I think it was in 2016 when I started that journey. I mean, I'm sure I started the journey a lot earlier, but when I discovered the word self abandonment, um,
Hmm.
it was in 2016 ish, that I started working on basically loving myself and, um, recognizing that I need to put boundaries in place in all aspects of my life. And now I do have boundaries, even with my parents. I have boundaries, even though I am still playing the role of the caregiver to my parents. I
Hmm.
still have boundaries around it, right? I don't give until I drop. That's how I used to be.
Okay.
I would give and give and give until literally I would drop. I
That's
wouldn't.
what it sounds like. It sounds like you had nothing else to give.
Yeah,
Especially when you're talking about your mental, your physical, and possibly was it your spiritual too?
absolutely. Every aspect of me, was drained by the time, because when you do self abandonment, it impacts everything, right? It's not just your physical body or your emotional body. It's everything. It's your spiritual. It's everything. It's your
Mhm.
entire, all aspects of your life get impacted. That's why it's so important to learn. First of all, acknowledge, understand that you have this self abandonment
Mhm.
tendency. Just knowing that you have it is a huge step forward. You don't even have to take steps to correct it initially. Just knowing it takes a huge burden off you, because now you understand what you're doing. Now you go, oh, okay. when you do something, even if it's not in the moment, after you analyze it, which we do, as highly sensitive people, we are constantly analyzing everything. Then you go, oh, okay, I did that because, it's my tendency to self-abandon. So what do I need to learn? Oh, okay, I need to learn how to set boundaries. Okay, how do I do that? What are boundaries? Do I have to have boundaries in every aspect of my life? Absolutely, they're different. My boundaries for work, I'm not in that world anymore, in the tech world anymore, but my boundaries for my work would be different than my boundaries with my family. They would be different than my boundaries with my neighbors, for example. Um,
And
but
your employers, your boss,
absolutely,
your coworker. Because the thing is, most people like carry it throughout their life, and like
yeah,
you said, it put a lot of stress on you, and a lot of mental stress, and it caused a disorder that was debilitating. But the thing is, most people find other people to, like you say, my dad was a narcissistic person.
yes,
Usually you find somebody else that's narcissistic, whether it's a boss, and you
yeah,
start catering to them. Or if it's a boyfriend, you start catering to them. You're like, wait a minute, how did I get with the same guy that, but unknowingly you
yes,
continue it. So that's why I was just asking, was that something you took all the way through? And I like
yes,
you left the audience with boundaries, and I want to just throw in and say it's okay to say no. It's
yeah,
absolutely okay to say no. That
yeah.
it doesn't it, that's self love. That's showing yourself, hey, I love myself enough.
Yeah. And also, we can take that even further, like make it so for what I had to do, because it was so hard for me to have boundaries since I didn't have it most of my life, right? I didn't
Mhm.
have boundaries until I was in my 40s, I think. Yeah, I think I started that journey in my 40s. It was hard, right? It was hard from going from yes and doing and pleasing and all that that came from your childhood trauma to all of a sudden having boundaries. So what I did is I would say no at first to everything. I would say no, just to practice saying no. And I would tell the person, my first response is going to be no.
Mhm.
And then, if my mind changes, I will let you know.
Yes.
But I had to do that because if I didn't, it wouldn't work for me. So I had to go the extreme. But I would be kind about it. I wouldn't be mean about it. I
Mhm.
never do anything that's mean spirited, in my opinion, because I believe in karma. Anything that you do will come back to you. So if you don't want to be treated that way, don't treat people that way either. So what I would do, I would say no in a kind and gentle way. I would say, hey, I'm working on setting my boundaries. Because it's new to me, I'm decided to say no to everything. And then I go back home and I think about it, or maybe I think in the moment. It depends on the situation and the severity of the ask. Like, is it something simple or is it something complex? Is it, what is the energy level that I need to expand on this thing?
Mhm.
And ask many different types of questions to figure out, okay, maybe I can turn that no to a yes in a matter of minutes of processing it, or no, I need more time to process it and let me get back to you tomorrow or the next day. But for now, my answer is no. If that changes, I'll let you know. And
Yeah.
actually, people are very kind, right? They're very kind and supportive. They understand that it's hard to set boundaries. And
Yeah.
um, they, in my, at even my parents, even though they were shocked when I was setting boundaries for the first time, they were respectful. They didn't like it. They didn't like it at all. To this day, they don't like it, but they are respectful and they
Right.
will honor my boundaries. And if they don't, I voice it. I say
Right.
it right away. I we have passwords in our home for various things. Like if my mom is saying things that are too negative and that I don't have the capacity to listen to her, I would say poison.
Okay. Better get it loaded.
And so wherever we
Yeah,
are,
I get it.
yeah, wherever we are, if I use the word poison, my mom will stop talking.
They should know that's it.
Yeah.
And, and the other thing is what so I know you said boundaries. The audience could try boundaries. What is because I and when we first started, you said now I'm working with adults. What
Mhm.
does that look like? Because I heard you say when you're ready to change, and I'm just hearing you say you went through a major change before
Yeah.
you even started to the ideal. Even before you started working with the children, it sounds
Yes.
like you went through a major change. So
Absolutely.
what does that look like? What does that look like when you helping people change?
So it really helps them, well, first of all, because I work exclusively with highly sensitive people,
Hmm.
and highly sensitive people know from the very beginning of their life that they're different than others. They know that. They see it. They recognize it, but they don't see it as a beauty. They see it as a flaw, especially in a culture like the U.S. where people want to be like each other, where
I
uniqueness
love
is not
that.
necessarily embraced. Like in France, when I lived in France, uniqueness is very much embraced. You
Hmm.
don't want to be the same as others. You don't want to look like them. You don't want to act like them. You don't want to talk like them. You want to be unique. At least that was my experience
Yeah.
in the part of France that I lived in, which was the South. Um, but in the US, you want to be like everyone else. If there's a
Right.
trend, everyone, like I remember when UGG, the boots, came and it was trendy. Everyone had Uggs.
Yeah.
Everyone wore them. They all, they all looked like the same. In France, that would never happen.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants to look like each other.
Yeah.
And so in a culture where people want to be alike, or when they want to look alike, they want to act this similar, maybe not the same, but similar.
Mhm.
They don't want to look, they don't want to, stick out, and be
Mhm.
different. High sensitivity is different, right? We're only 20% of the global population. So we are very different. And it shows in
Mhm.
everything that we do. It shows because we see subtleties that others don't see. We're very empathetic people. So have really big hearts, are very compassionate, and
Yes.
very creative people. We think out of the box. We are very resourceful. There's a lot of things that are different, and it's a package, right? It's not. Yes, somebody could have be an empath at a high level, but then they won't have the other aspects that highly sensitive people have. So I'm
Mhm.
talking about a uniqueness because of the whole package, right? Not just
Mhm.
one component of being highly sensitive.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you get this belief system from the society, from your family, from your friends that, oh, you're different and your difference
Mhm.
is not good. It's a weakness. Why? Because you have very strong emotions. Like, I can cry very easily. I was at a yoga retreat. The lady was talking about she lost her dog. She was crying. Um, yes, a few people cried. I was wailing. I wasn't just crying. I was wailing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I like ugly cries that I could
Mhm.
not control. And she stopped crying. I was still crying after she
Yeah.
stopped crying herself. So yes, our emotions are, we can feel emotions very deeply. And so we can cry easily. Um, but that's not a bad thing. But our society makes it look like it's a weakness. If you
Yeah.
cry, oh my God, if you cry at work, which I've done in the past, not many times, but still have
Oh
done it.
yeah.
Oh my God, you're
Right.
so weak. Why would you cry
Right.
in front of your boss?
Right.
Why would you cry in
Right.
front of that person? And when I was in it, I thought, oh my God, I would come home and I would be like, my God, Paris too, you're so weak. I would beat
Yeah.
myself up like there was no
Now,
before.
before we're right at one. Could
Oh,
you
I'm so
tell
sorry.
everybody how to follow you?
Yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah.
they can find you at?
Yes, I'm on all social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Paris to Imami. on LinkedIn, and I'm also on TikTok. And all social media is just basically just my name, Paris to Imami. And then also my website, parentinghsc.com. I'm actually going to have to change that website as my business has expanded, but I'm in the process of doing that. But for now, it's parentinghsc.com.
All right. Okay. Well, I really appreciate your candidacy. I hope that it helps a lot of people because, like I said, a lot of people have families that are like that, where the parents, the children are the parents. And also people who need to reach into that inner self so they can heal, whether it's health, mental, or spiritual. And I'm, of course, Roberta the Tool Lady. I appreciate everybody that listened tonight. Anybody that is going to listen, follow me on YouTube, help me out. And I promise that I'm going to give you a little bit more. I promise. Thank you and love you.
There's a sparkle in your eyes. I feel the warmth of your skin.